They say history repeats itself.
And they've done it! They've done it! Manchester City have done it!
But in football, it often just borrows the blueprint. And right now, Mikel Arteta is flipping through Pep Guardiola's playbook, page by page. But why? Because Arteta is chasing what Pep finally conquered, a treble. And Arteta's making it obvious. But how is he doing that? And can he achieve the treble this season? Well, let's talk about it.
No, but I had this when I was a player as well. Because we grow in the same position. I cannot control that. I have never tried to copy-paste anything because I don't feel it. I think this club deserves much better than that, and it wouldn't work that way. And every character and the person, I think, dictates how is the manager and then how is the team, and we are very different.
If we're being honest, this season is the most important one of Arteta's career, not just because of the pressure that comes with managing a club like Arsenal, but because of everything that's led up to this point. Think about it. 2 seasons ago, Arsenal had the title in their hands. They spent most of that campaign leading the Premier League. People were starting to believe again. Arsenal looked fresh, young and dynamic. But then April came around, the pressure kicked in, and City overtook them. That collapse hurt, not just for the fans, but for Arteta too. He built something so close to perfection, but it wasn't enough. Last season also, Arsenal came back stronger. They addressed weaknesses, added depth, and pushed the title race again. But this time, it wasn't City that stopped them. It was a new name, a new threat. Arne Slot's Liverpool, a coach in his debut Premier League campaign, found a way to take Arsenal's dream away. And if that wasn't enough, let's talk about the Champions League. Arsenal finally looked like contenders. They took down Real Madrid. That's not a small achievement. But what happened next? PSG humiliated them. All the hype, all the expectations, they vanished after the second leg. The last chance for a big trophy that season ended with a loss. That's been the story of Arteta's Arsenal. Always close, but never winners. And that story feels familiar. That was the same narrative around Pep Guardiola before he won the Champions League with City. Remember those seasons when City were called the best team in Europe but kept falling short? The Lyon elimination, the Chelsea final loss. City dominated leagues but couldn't conquer Europe. For years, it was the same criticism. Close, but not enough. But Pep changed that, not just by waiting for luck to turn, but by reshaping his squad, reinforcing specific areas, and building a machine designed to win on every front. And now, Arteta is following that same path. This isn't about copying tactics move for move, but about studying the blueprint of what it takes to go from being close to winning everything. Arteta has seen that up close. He worked under Pep, and now, piece by piece, he's taken the same steps Pep took before that treble season. So what did Pep do first to get City over the line? That's what we're about to get into next, because when you look at the first phase of Pep's treble-winning team, you'll see exactly where Arsenal started building too, and it all begins with the backline. But before we talk about that, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you. The first step in building a team capable of winning everything starts from the back. That's exactly where Pep Guardiola began before City's treble season. City already had a solid defense, but Pep wanted more. He wanted depth, flexibility, and above all, control from the backline. That's why he brought in Manuel Akanji. Not the flashiest name, but the perfect fit. Akanji came in and immediately slotted in next to Diaz or Stones without disrupting the system. His composure, his ability to play out from the back, and his intelligence on the ball made City's defense even harder to break. And then there was John Stones moving into midfield, Pep's hybrid defender who acted as an extra midfielder when City built up play. That move made City defensively secure while enhancing their ability to control games. They also had Nathan Ake, who was a joy to watch. Now look at Arsenal. Arteta has followed a similar path. His version of Akanji and Stones is William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes. Together, they've built an almost impenetrable backline. Arsenal conceded one of the fewest goals in the Premier League last season, not by sitting deep, but by dominating possession and controlling spaces because of Saliba and Gabriel. Saliba is technically elite, press-resistant and positionally sharp. Gabriel complements him with strength, aggression, and defensive leadership. Both are comfortable on the ball, maybe not as refined as Diaz or Stones just yet, but certainly good enough to build from deep and break pressing lines. But Arteta didn't stop there. This summer, he added Christian Mosquera from Valencia, a left-sided centre-back, only 19 but mature beyond his years. This signing wasn't random, it was strategic. Arsenal needed depth in that left centre-back position. Last season, when Gabriel wasn't fit, the balance of the defence broke down. Mosquera brings depth and competition, ensuring that if Gabriel is unavailable or rotation is needed, the defensive line doesn't lose its structure. And that's what Pep had in his treble season. Depth. With Diaz, Stones, Akanji, Laporte and Ake, Pep could rotate without sacrificing stability. Arteta is building the same thing. Add in Timber, Ben White, Zinchenko, Luis Skelly and Calafiori at fullback, and Arsenal's defensive options look far more robust this season. But while a strong defense is a foundation, the real transformation of a team comes from the middle of the park. That's where Pep's treble-winning side truly evolved, thanks to one man, Rodri. And guess what? Arteta is following that same script, bringing in his midfield general. If there is one position that defines whether a team can control games at the highest level, it's the defensive midfield role. Pep Guardiola understood that better than anyone. That's why, in his treble-winning season, the backbone of his entire system wasn't Haaland, it wasn't De Bruyne, it wasn't Foden, it was Rodri. Rodri gave City the structure to play their way in any situation. You press them high, Rodri finds a way out. You sit deep, Rodri dictates the tempo until you're forced to break shape. And when you lose the ball, Rodri is always in the right place to recover it. There's no better example than what happened to City last season when Rodri was missing. In the games he didn't play, City looked exposed. They struggled to retain control, struggled to dictate the rhythm, and the drop-off was obvious. That's how vital he is. That treble season, it wouldn't have been possible without him. Now let's look at Arsenal. Arteta has tried to build this same security in midfield, but he's never quite had his Rodri. He's had Thomas Partey, who at his best is a great defensive midfielder, but Partey's fitness issues and his inability to consistently handle intense pressing situations makes him unreliable at the top level. Now I know he is a bit press resistant, but he is not on a Rodri kind of level. Then Arteta bought in Jorginho, who's excellent on the ball, but lacks the physicality and speed to anchor a midfield in the Premier League across an entire season. That's why, this summer, Arteta went out to fix that weakness once and for all. He targeted and signed Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad. If you've watched Zubimendi play, you'll understand why this was such a priority for Arteta. Zubimendi is, in many ways, the closest thing to Rodri 2.0. He's press-resistant, calm under pressure, and technically gifted. But what really stands out is his spatial awareness. He always knows where the danger is, where his teammates are, and where the pass needs to go. He can receive the ball with his back to goal and still find a solution. A quality very few midfielders have at an elite level. I mean, in Spain, when Rodri was out, he was the guy they trusted to handle the Rodri role, and he did it very well. With Zubimendi, Arsenal gain a midfielder who doesn't just protect the defense, but enhances the entire team's ability to play through the press. Combining with Declan Rice, and you start seeing similarities to Pep's midfield partnership of Rodri and Gundogan. Rice brings the energy, the ball-carrying ability, and the defensive aggression. Zubimendi brings the composure, the passing range, and the tempo control. And Arteta isn't just building a starting 11 here, he's building depth. Beyond Rice and Zubimendi, Arsenal have Mikel Merino, who can fill multiple roles in midfield, and Christian Norgard, another capable defensive midfielder who provides security when rotation is needed. This depth is important because that's what made City so formidable. It wasn't just Rodri and Gundogan, it was having players like Bernardo Silva who could drop in, or Calvin Phillips, who, even though he didn't play much, was still a tactical option. For Arsenal, with Zubimendi, Rice, Merino, Norgard and Ødegaard as the advanced playmaker, that midfield is suddenly looking complete, not just for the league, but to compete deep into the Champions League. But there's still one phase left, because while Pep had his defense and midfield sorted, he still needed something up top to finish games ruthlessly, and that's exactly the final step Arteta is working on. After building the perfect backline and securing midfield control with Rodri, the final piece of Pep Guardiola's treble-winning puzzle was the striker position, and this was a critical shift in Pep's philosophy. For years, he avoided using a traditional number 9 when Aguero left. He leaned on the false 9 system, players like Foden, De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, even Sterling at times. It worked to a point. I mean, it worked in the league, but it always came with one limitation. They created a lot of chances, but they didn't finish enough of them in the biggest moments. Pep understood that to win everything, especially the Champions League, he needed an elite finisher. That's why City went all in for Erling Haaland, a pure striker, a machine in front of the goal, and the result? 52 goals and 9 assists in his debut season. He didn't just score for fun, he changed City's entire threat level in the final third. But it wasn't just Haaland. Pep also brought in Julian Alvarez. Not as prolific as Haaland, but incredibly important. Alvarez's role wasn't just to score, it was to rotate, to press, to keep the intensity high when Haaland needed rest, and to pop up with crucial goals. He ended the season with 17 goals and 5 assists, contributing in games where City needed that spark off the bench or tactical flexibility. Now let's look at Arsenal. Arteta has his Alvarez-like figure already, Gabriel Jesus. When he's fit, Jesus is a live wire. He presses, he connects play, he dribbles, and he creates openings. The problem has been his injuries, but when Jesus is fully fit, he gives Arteta exactly what Alvarez gives Pep: energy, movement, and an alternative option when the starting striker isn't available or when the system needs a tweak. But what about the Haaland role? That pure goal machine who guarantees you goals in tight games? That's where Arsenal have been lacking. Last season, they missed too many big chances. Havertz, Mourinho, all had opportunities in key games that could have turned draws into wins, but the finishing just wasn't clinical enough. That's why the arrival of Victor Gyökeres changes everything. This is the missing piece for Arteta. 68 goals in 66 league games. That's not a stat you can ignore. He's powerful, direct, and ruthless in front of the goal. And more than just the numbers, it's his mentality that stands out. Gyökeres has openly said he's coming to the Premier League with a mission for revenge, with a point to prove, and with hunger to dominate. With Gyökeres leading the line, Arsenal now have that Haaland-type figure, the kind of striker who doesn't need 5 chances to score once. He makes the difference in games where Arsenal previously dropped points, those 1-1 draws, those tight Champions League knockout ties. Gyökeres is the type of player who turns those into victories. Gyökeres starting, Jesus rotating in when needed, and even Havertz as an alternative false 9 in specific tactical setups. That's depth, that's flexibility, and that's exactly the striker structure Pep had when City won the treble. So now, with the defence solidified, the midfield reinforced, and the striker position upgraded, Arsenal are looking more complete than they've ever been under Arteta. But before we wrap it up, there's still something to address. It might look like Arteta is copying Pep step by step, but tactically, this Arsenal team is carving its own identity. Because even though the squad building mirrors City's, the way Arteta uses these players is starting to look very different. At first glance, it's easy to assume that Mikel Arteta is simply copying Pep Guardiola's treble blueprint. The way Arsenal have built from the back, reinforced midfield, and signed a prolific striker seems like a direct replication of what Pep did with Man City. But when you take a closer look, you realise Arteta is doing something very different. He isn't copying tactics, he's adapting ideas but building his own version of a winning team that plays the Arsenal way. Pep's Man City are about control, patience, and wearing teams down. City's game is structured around dominating possession, recycling the ball endlessly, and waiting for the perfect opportunity to break through. They suffocate opponents with structure and calculated movement. Arteta's Arsenal, however, operates with far more directness. They play with urgency. The ball moves quicker, the transitions are sharper, and there's a clear intent to strike when the moment presents itself. Arsenal don't want to keep possession of the ball for possession's sake. They want to progress fast, pin opponents back, and create opportunities with speed and precision. Even the players within these structures reflect that difference. Take Bukayo Saka, for example. He is Arsenal's most creative and dangerous outlet in the final third. He's direct, efficient, and often ruthless. A very different profile to Phil Foden, who thrives in tighter spaces with more control in City's system. Then there's Martin Ødegaard, the orchestrator of Arsenal's attacks. He plays the role that Kevin De Bruyne occupies for City, but Ødegaard offers a different kind of creativity. He's less about explosive runs and more about delicate touches, positioning, and clever passes between lines. His leadership and technical skill have made him the engine of Arsenal's forward play, even though he might not yet be operating at De Bruyne's level of impact. Defensively, there are reflections too. Pep relies on Kyle Walker's pace and defensive intelligence to cover transitions, especially when City pushes high. Arteta's solution has been Jurriën Timber. When fit, Timber provides the same level of security with his pace, defensive awareness, and composure on the ball. It's not the same player, but the tactical function is similar, ensuring Arsenal aren't exposed when they commit players forward. On the left wing, however, there's still a gap for Arsenal. City had Jack Grealish in the treble season, who slows the game down when needed, retains possession under pressure, and ensures balance. Arsenal has Gabriel Martinelli, who is fast, aggressive, and direct, but not always consistent when it comes to decision-making in the final third. That's why the potential signing of Eberechi Eze is so significant. If Arsenal completes that deal, it wouldn't just be another squad addition. It would give Arteta the left-sided creator he needs. Eze can dribble, glide past players, create from wide areas, or come inside to link play. He brings a level of control and unpredictability that Arsenal currently lack on that side. And in truth, Eze could offer even more than Grealish does for City, simply because of his versatility and goal threat. If Arsenal secure him, then suddenly, every piece of this squad starts to align with what a balanced, title-winning team should look like, but still with an Arsenal identity, not a City replica. So yes, the squad structure, the depth, the balance between defense, midfield and attack, all of that mirrors what Pep Guardiola assembled at City. But tactically, stylistically, and even mentally, Arteta is crafting a version of Arsenal that stands on its own. It's a project influenced by Pep, but not defined by him. And now, with the squad almost complete, with key positions reinforced and the tactical ideas more refined, the question turns to success. Arsenal have come close, but that isn't enough anymore. This season they have to win. But do you think they will finally win? Well, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out our last video on the Arsenal squad. Thank you.